Associate for years was a sponsor for our website hosting, and we would like to thank them for that support. The Azure Data Community that Microsoft has put together, they're one of our sponsors. SQL Gene, right up front, he's a good ally and friend of our group. And Joe Fleming from SQL Taylor, he does a donation for all of our video interviews that we've done this year for Women in Tech. So we are very happy to be here back in person and see all of these great people here today. We would like you to sign up for our newsletter, www.dataplatformwit.com. We are hopefully going to be expanding our website and getting more women involved now that we're all back in person, and we would love to have you involved with us. Come along and do some cool stuff. We have a YouTube channel. You can go check out our previous interviews. That would be great. Today we are here to talk about tackling the challenges of women leads in tech. We all know that there are many issues that we all have to face. We have a great panel here, and I will let them start to introduce themselves. Blythe, go ahead.
Oh. Hi. My name is Blythe Morrow. So I've been coming to the PASS Summit since 2008. In fact, I actually started my career in 2008 working for PASS, and myself and a number of the PASS folks coordinated this event right here. And so now I'm standing or sitting on the stage talking to you. This is a pretty amazing full circle for me. So I went and I fell in love with SQL Server as a product of working for PASS and meeting all you special kinds of crazy. And then became a consultant, and I'm a storyteller by trade. I'm a writer. It's what I do every day, and it's my love language. And so I moved into the marketing space and was a consultant for a long time, built a team of people, and we worked with a number of organizations helping wrap messaging around products so that people like you would actually buy them. And then today, I just actually started a brand new job leading the product marketing for database at SolarWinds. And so went to a really big company. Thank you. And so now I lead a pretty big team. And again, I'm just thrilled to be here. I can't thank Redgate enough for making this happen this year. This is absolutely wonderful and fills my heart.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anna Hoffman. I work at Microsoft. Actually, I was at Microsoft prior to being a SQL person. So I came over to SQL in 2018. Lots of learning, which I'll talk about. But I'm super excited to be here. I am still on the SQL team. I've kind of bopped around from BDC to Azure SQL to all of it, to none of it, to a little bit of everything. And now I lead the SQL growth and experiences team. So you've probably interacted with some of the wonderful people on the team here. And I'm just really excited to be here. And so thank you all for including us.
Hello everyone, my name is Shabnam Watson. I'm a speaker, blogger, and Microsoft Data Platform MVP, and I own my own consulting business. I've been in IT and working with computers pretty much all my life. I started writing my first program when I was in middle school. I found a PC magazine and I typed 2 pages, not knowing what's going to come out, and it was a letter A following a letter B. And that was my first program, and I really loved it, and I also played a lot of computer games. I fell in love with the graphics. My first computer was Spectrum. I think it's a European one, yes. And then Commodore, and then Amiga, and so I really, really loved the graphics. So I went to study computer engineering and computer science. Then I worked as a programmer, started with VB6, SQL Server 7, and then slowly got to the data side of things. So I've been working with analysis services and Power BI for about 20 years, and most recently with the Synapse and the rest of the Azure products. So I'm super happy to be here with all of you and excited to talk about women in technology. Thank you.
I'm going to check. Okay, it is on. I didn't believe you. I'm so sorry. Hi, I'm Jen McCown. A little loud, sorry. I am CEO and co-founder of Minionware. We have a small software company for DBAs by DBAs is what we say. I too am a lifelong computer nerd, so yay, lifelong computer nerds. Let's see here, became a DBA around 2000-ish. And, you know, kind of went up the ranks slowly over time. You get to junior and medium and mid-level. Yes, and then large. Junior, mid-level. It usually happens, yeah. I'm not going to comment on that. And senior over time, I've been an MVP. I've gotten my Microsoft Certified Master. What else? Spent a lot of that time coming up doing the blogging and the videos and so forth. So if you corner me and ask me a blogging question, I will be very enthusiastic about encouraging you to get started. And then I found that as a DBA or anything in SQL, I think there comes a point where you're at the highest level you can get, and then they want to make you a manager. And I'm like, no, I don't want to manage people. So I became a consultant instead, which is a good step up. And after a while, then co-founded a business, and that turns, you have to manage people if you do that. So that was a surprise. So the last couple of, handful of years has been learning a lot about not just being a techie with a business, but being an actual business person. So yeah, some of you are nodding. Some of you have consulting firms, don't you? But yeah, I think that's most of what I wanted to say. And now I'm here, and we'll talk about cool stuff.
Thank you, ladies. You are all brilliant, and we are happy you are here. So, Blythe, I'd like to start with you.
Sure.
How do you think women should address the challenges in becoming leaders in the tech space?
I'm so happy you didn't ask me a SQL question. Oh my gosh.
I know. It's like I planned it.
Yeah. There's no test after this, right? So I started in the SQL community like right after university, which is what we say in the rest of the college for those Americans in the room. And I spent a lot of time just really feeling like I didn't belong here, right? Because I'm a writer, I did PR and I did marketing, but I loved SQL, but I would rather write than code T-SQL, but I could do a little bit of that too, so I was never really sure. And so I got to a point in my career where I focused less on trying to belong and more figuring out my own mindset. Or rather thinking about how I'm going to be a leader, how I'm going to show up for people, and how I'm going to internalize who I am and then share that with the world. And so as my career has progressed and as I've kind of moved into management, which is different than leadership, I would argue, and I started really seeing the limitations, the external limitations that women have in this space and in their roles. But more than that, I would say that there is a self-limiting belief system that we have. We've internalized some guardrails around what we can do and where we can progress that are not imposed on us externally anymore. Now, I'm not saying that we have issues in upward momentum for women in leadership, but we have a lot of work to do internally in our own mindset to decide what we want to be when we grow up and what our next step is, and to unlock some of the things that have been told to us over and over and over again. And I'll give you an example. So I read, oh my goodness, this was like 10 years ago, but I read an article in Forbes that I think it was women, it would take another 25, 30 years for women to be on the leadership, to encompass 15% of the leadership teams of the top 1,000 companies in the world. And so I read that and I internalized it, and I'm like, well, I should probably try for something else, because I'm never gonna be able to do that, right? Like, I'm never gonna be able to be a CTO or a CMO of one of those big companies. Look at the data. And I internalize that, and then it becomes a belief, and I believe it, and then I go through the world believing that and trying to work around that limitation, right? But I don't even remember who wrote that article. I don't even remember, like, I consumed something, I believed it, and so then it was true. And so I want to really encourage you all to think about what you're consuming and what data you're consuming and what people are telling you, and then what you're believing when you think about your own career. So I want to do one thing. Can we do a little exercise? I want you all to grab your phones or grab a piece of paper and a pen. Just do this for me. Because somebody did this for me a long time ago and it changed my life. You too, Ben. You too. I see you. And if you're watching the recording, please do this. Just please do this. I want you to write your first name and your last name. And then a comma. And then your title. Yep, consultants and business owners, you too. And I want you to hit enter. Then I want you to write your first name and your last name and your boss's title. For consultants in the room, I want you to pick your biggest client, the person who pays your bills, write that title. And then I want you to hit enter. I'm going to give you a second, because I tend to rush things. I want you to hit enter. I want you to write your first name, your last name, and your whole last name. I want the whole name. I want you to see your whole name. That's important. And I have some people write an initial. No, your whole name. It's who you are. Names are important. A comma, and then your skip manager, or your MOR, your manager once removed. Consultants, your biggest consultant manager. A lot of you are going to be at the CTO level. A lot of you are going to be an enterprise data director. A lot of you are going to be at a CEO level. Now, we just heard Jen say, that's not what I want to do, right? And a lot of you might be like that, right? I don't want to manage people. But you could, okay? You could be the CTO of your company. There is nothing stopping you from having that title that you just wrote down, except for your own self-limiting beliefs. And if you want to do more of this work, please hit me up on LinkedIn, or please let me know. I would love to have a conversation with any of you about this, because it really lights me up. But that's what I think about when I think about being a leader. Helping people remove those self-limiting beliefs and thinking bigger than they ever have before. Thanks.
Nice, thank you. Does anybody have anything they would like to add to that? Jen?
Yep. It's okay, we're friends. Well, first things first, I know you know this now, but you do belong here. You always have. And the other thing, that process of visualizing, I think, is brilliant, because a lot of things kind of get lost in translation. There are a couple of different sayings around, all you need to do is visualize your success. And it's like, well, that's partly true. That being able to visualize it, I think, is a necessary step. It's not the only thing that we have to do. But you're absolutely right. It's a great first step.
So along those same lines, Anna, can you talk to us about how you overcome imposter syndrome to remove those limitations and become a caterpillar to a butterfly?
Sure, yeah. I'll be honest, when you asked the question, I had a little bit of an imposter syndrome if I should answer this question.
Right. You are totally qualified for imposter syndrome, I'm telling you.
Thank you. I think there's a lot of things that play into imposter syndrome. I think personally, over the years, I joined the SQL team in 2018, and quite frankly, knew nothing about SQL. And my job was to go spread the word about machine learning and SQL Server and the cloud, and these are things I didn't really know much about. So I took on some strategies, some tools in my tool belt, which might help you all. One of the things that I took on was to try to become a guide, not an expert. I don't want to walk into a room and assume I'm the expert, because I'm not, and that wasn't helping me feel confident. So I got comfortable asking questions, got comfortable, learning, right? I think you have to keep asking questions. So that was the first thing. I think the second thing, and it's funny because there's huge spotlights on us right now, but I think a lot of the times they call something called the spotlight effect, where you walk in a room, you're like, oh my gosh, I don't belong here. Everyone's looking at me. They're going to find out that I'm not supposed to be here, that I don't know. And I think it's important to look at yourselves and realize that you see yourself from the inside. You see it all. But you only see everyone else from the outside. So I think you have to give yourself some grace and give yourself some credit that probably a lot of the things that you're feeling or you're not seeing in other people are happening. I took some notes because again, like I said, I have imposter syndrome about imposter syndrome. One of the other things that I learned is like over time, as I kept asking questions, I kept learning, you start to get some confidence. I think that confidence is really important. So embrace that confidence. You'll start to realize like some things that feel obvious to you, other people are like, oh yeah, good point, Anna. And you're like, oh yeah, I know what I'm talking about, yeah. And so like, take that and acknowledge that. And I think like these are things that have helped me, but I think like the biggest thing has also just been believing in myself, right? Like you have to believe in yourself if other people are going to believe in you. So, whatever you have to do to hype yourself up, to help yourself be prepared to believe in yourself, I think is worth doing. And then there were 3 things that I think I was trying to think like, what are the biggest things that have gotten me through this imposter syndrome, still get me through this imposter syndrome? Just last month, I expanded my team, and I now have a 10-person team with huge scope that I feel like I'm not qualified to support. But the 3 things that I always try to do is to work hard. Like I think that goes a long way. I also think, just keep learning as much as you can. That's how you're going to overcome some of these feelings that you have. And then this is another one which maybe people will disagree with, but I think it goes a long way to be someone that people like to work with. So even if you feel like you don't know all the answers, if people like to work with you, they're more likely to help you. They're more likely to help you understand. They're more likely to support you. When you're in a room and you need someone to be that ally for you, they're there. So those are just a couple things, me rambling. We have a lot of experience on the stage. I'd love y'all's thoughts too.
So my favorite newest meme is, so when I ask you, does that make sense? It's not because I think you're stupid, it's because I think I'm incoherent. And it's that imposter syndrome. Am I making sense? Does what I say, am I saying the right things? Maybe what I said was completely wrong. I don't know. I try not to say those things if I'm not sure. But absolutely, and I think being somebody people like to work with. If you're mean or snarly, people don't want to work with you. And if you're pleasant and polite and not deferential, we're not gonna, but yeah, just don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick. But there are a lot of folks in this room who you're alone. You're the sole DBA, right? You're the sole data pro in your company. You're one of 2. Right? And so it's important to step into your authority and to believe that you really represent the data platform for the whole organization, to show up to meetings, to actively listen to the business, and then to give your best advice and learn how to do that in a collaborative way. That's going to solve a lot of the imposter syndrome that you have. Your company hired you, and you are the expert. And so be honest when you don't know something, but really, truly, step into that authority. That's important.
I have things on this. I definitely had imposter syndrome coming up. Consulting kind of beats that out of you a little bit, doesn't it? Figuratively speaking. 1, keep learning. That's just such a great piece of advice. You're absolutely right. 2, I want to shout out a friend of mine. Another woman in the field. I'm not going to name names because they may not be comfortable with this, but I like what she says. She says, I don't have imposter syndrome, I'm a secret agent. I am getting away with this job and they don't even know. All I have to do is keep being reasonably competent. She's right. She's 100%, which brings me on to number 3. One of the coolest things ever was when we first started coming to, when I first started coming to Past Summit, we were just starting up a web show at the time, and we were like, we're gonna interview a bunch of authors and stuff like that, and one of the questions that we asked, and we got to talk to like the big ones, we got to talk to Itzik Ben-Gan and Kaylin Delaney, and we got to talk to the really, really cool, you can actually see in those early videos, I'm going like this. It's a little embarrassing. Oh, so hard. But one of the questions we asked was, so what is a time that you've screwed up really badly at work? And I don't remember, I have a terrible memory. One of the things was, that I remember clearly, is Itzik starting to tell a story about screwing up at work, and it was very big and blindingly obvious, and he says, and after I did 2 or 3 more things to make sure that we could not recover, then, and I'm like, all right, I feel better now. So, yeah, so if we all have imposter syndrome, that means that none of us is probably an imposter. We can't all be. Right.
Shabnam, did you want to add to that?
So when I was invited to be part of this panel, I was super excited. I've always secretly wanted to be up here whenever I came to have this luncheon in previous years. I always imagined myself up here one day. I didn't plan to be up there, but I always wished, I had this secret wish. But then when it happened, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I belong up there. So I did have the imposter syndrome, but it's okay to have it. You can acknowledge it and then be uncomfortable and fight it, and then that's when you grow. Yeah.
Great, thanks. Shabnam also gets our next question. What are some of the challenges that a woman tech lead has around persistent gender inequity in the tech world? Ooh, that's a big one.
That's a hard one.
She picked it. I didn't make her.
Yes, I did. So let me start by saying that the 2 things that I'm going to talk about, they're not specific to women. They can be applied to any minority group. However, this session today is about women, right? So we're going to talk about them applying to women. All right, so having said that, one of the things that women in tech have to fight is the stereotype that a lot of people think that we cannot grasp ideas the same way that men can. We don't have the same technical background. We don't understand things the same way. And it's not that men or sometimes even women do that intentionally. No one wakes up in the morning and says, let me go ruin someone's day. I'm going to tell them how dumb they are, right? None of us do that. It's just that well, except for a few. Yes, so it's just that we all have biases. So we all have this unconscious bias, right? We all, when we hear people talk, based on their accent, what part of the world they are, based on how they look, all of that, we form an opinion within seconds of seeing someone in person, right? And unfortunately, that sometimes works against women, right? Because of how the media has played for years and years, all the movies we have watched, everything else. So that ends up preventing sometimes women to go ahead in their career. They get dismissed when promotions are, they don't get the promotions and things like that. And a part of that is because there's also fewer of us in the field, so it kind of adds up. So, well, what can we do about it? If you you go into a meeting and you have someone speaking about a new topic or something's being discussed, and your internal voice tells you that they don't know what they're talking about, you disagree, okay? Pause for a second and slow down and ask yourself if you are making that judgment purely based on facts and if you're fair. Because all of us have it. Women have that against other women. Men have that. So it's okay to feel that you don't like someone just based on how they look or how they sound. It's just part of our human reptilian brain sometimes. But it's not okay for you to be conscious about it and continue with it. So that's the unconscious bias. So like, for example, and the reason we have the biases and the habits is because to reduce the cognitive load on our brains every day. So when you go open the pantry door, what do you expect to find? Anyone? Food, right? Cookies? Yes, yes, yes. So unless if you live in my house, then you find cookies? Cell phones and keys. Yes, yeah. So it all depends on your past experiences, right? So it's the same thing, unfortunately, that affects women in technology. So that was one. That was the first one, and the second one that kind of is related to that is the wage gap. So we all know that there is a wage gap. It's not fair. If you're an activist in the field, you can help fight it, right? You can help make it better. But what would you do if you're a woman and you find out that someone else in the company is making more than you? They're being compensated more. It's not just the money. It's they have better benefits. They have more time off. They work fewer hours. Well, if you can verify that you have the same skill set, same years of experience, everything the same, right? You got to do something about it. So you have to advocate for yourself. You own your own career, right? The one thing you have to be careful about, though, is that a lot of companies are not transparent about their salaries, which makes it difficult. So you can go to the HR and say, hey, I heard so-and-so is making so much, how come I'm not? So that's not, you shouldn't do that. You should do your research, figure out how much people in the industry are making. A lot of times you can talk to other people at the conferences like this. Maybe your immediate coworkers aren't comfortable sharing with you how much they're making, but if you go to someone that you don't normally work with, you can get some kind of ideas. There's some websites you can use. And then you just have to go and ask for it. And if you get a negative response when you're politely asking for something, then most likely that's not the place for you to stay at. So for women in technology, more so than men, sometimes you have to jump companies to get ahead in your career. If you're stuck somewhere, don't think that's the only option you have. So sometimes you have to be uncomfortable and move on, and you'll get better things.
Tracy would totally agree that you should quit your job if you're not happy. It's bad for your mental health.
Yeah.
Anybody have anything to add on the wage gap, biases, stereotypes?
Sure, yeah, thank you. I just wanted to kind of double down on the advocate for yourself. If you think you deserve a promotion, go fill out the paperwork. Give it to your boss. I do it every time I want a promotion. And I think, you have to show that initiative. And maybe sometimes as women, we're less likely to do that, but I think we need to do that. We need to acknowledge where we're at, what we're doing, what we're contributing, look around, and advocate for yourself. You have to manage your career. So I think, and if you're not getting that, then yeah, maybe it's time to look elsewhere.
100%, and I'm super glad to hear this kind of advice becoming more popular and coming from somebody that's very authoritative. Yeah, one of the things I have to derail myself for just a second and say, we all know the wage gap exists, and I want to take a moment and say there are a handful of folks. Some of them very smart who are still kind of like, I don't understand that. How can that be? It's not like they say, women who apply for this position, you're going to get this percentage, and men, you're going to get 20% more. I don't have the ability or time to explain it right now, but suffice to say that there are lots of influences, like the flow of water, that aren't clear to you just because they're not obvious. But if it's not clear to you, then you probably haven't experienced it or may not have been paying attention or something along those lines. It doesn't make you dumb, but just know that there's more to it than just what would be the obvious. But yeah, so you were talking about something that you said made me write down, by improving women's position overall. And I think it was related to the wage gap. I guess you got me thinking about, oh yeah, of course, if you talk to people and you find out the salaries, or you do your research or what have you, you can just go someplace else. By teaching one another and helping one another with interviewing skills and confidence skills and being aware of imposter syndrome and the embedded beliefs and so forth, by training ourselves up and one another, yeah, we can close that wage gap down, or start to anyway, because it's like, none of us are going to take this anymore. Bye.
Yes, and I would write on a sticky note, you are worth it, and have that on your cell phone when you're interviewing, and repeat it to yourself that you are worth it, whatever you're asking for, you are worth it. That will help you.
One of the best pieces of advice I got from a former past president, actually, was when I was starting my consulting business and I wasn't sure how to set my rates. He said, your rates are whatever you can say with a straight face.
Yes.
But it's so true, right? You go into the negotiation, and I just did a how to renegotiate your salary session, and I love talking money because I love getting ladies paid. I do. I just love it. I love it. Always say the number first and go high, because they'll come back to you. It's just a conversation. It's fine. Go high. And just remember that there is no magic fairy godmother who's going to come up to you tomorrow and be like, I choose you for a promotion. Here's 20%. And you just work, I just work really hard. My manager, my company will just give me a promotion. I'll earn it. No, you won't. You won't. I mean, you might, but probably not. You know what I mean? So I'm with you. I'm with all of you that you've got to ask for it.
So in regards to the negotiation piece, after I had been with my company for a while, I came into some information that made me realize that I had not done as good a job negotiating as I could have. And part of that was because my background is government. And there is no negotiation in government. I mean, they say this is what you get, that's what you get. The PTO is in the employee handbook, and that's what you accrue and how you accrue it. And so not even knowing that those things were potential things to ask for, right? I kind of feel like because somebody else asked, they got that thing, but I didn't even know to ask. But nobody said, oh, hey, we're going to give you this extra thing. These other people asked for extra, so we're going to give you extra too. And it's just one of those things where you, if you don't know that that's something that you can ask for, you don't even really have any idea that you should ask for it. So, yeah, negotiation and pay is hard.
Call me.
Whole session.
Just call me.
Okay.
Just call me.
All right. But we got a bulldog over here. She's going to go fight for us. Okay, Jen, how can women model new paradigms of compassionate leadership and power?
Ooh, that's a great question. Leadership and power. It's a question that for some reason pings on me right away. Like how do we model these things for men so that men will, and it just immediately turned me around. I was like, wait a second, no, for everyone, because I love that so much. I love that I get to go last because you've all touched on stuff that I want to talk about. It's all about me now. Thank you. Oh man, I distracted myself. So model good, and this is grammatically correct, model good by doing good and do it well. It is the best way. And we've talked about some of these things already about those learned behaviors. What is it you said that I liked so much? I wrote it down on the wrong page. External and internal barriers, those things, those biases that we get, that we absorb. I call it being in the soup, which is ridiculous and no one understands me when I say it, but it's the things that we grew up with, and then even once you get up out of the soup and you shower off, you're still stained with whatever it was you were raised with. And a ton of what we're all raised with is women aren't good at math. women aren't good at science. Men do science. Men do this. Men do that. I mean, you know, a lot of great. I love a lot of you guys, and you're great at math and science. Some of you.
Some of you.
But it's just one of those things. Well, we need to start looking at those things and catching them, like you were saying, and saying, oh wait, I had this thought. That's an incorrect thought, and I need to start pushing back against that. And you know, those are the big obvious ones, but like one of the more insidious things is, I gotta be honest, I've been disorganized in my thinking about what I want to say here today, because there's just, I want to take the next hour and keep the mic and fight it away from Leslie and everybody. But trying to squash that down, one of the more insidious things is how women are taught to hate one another, how we're taught that it's a zero-sum game. And we don't think like that necessarily on the surface, but how many times have we been either the propagator of or the victim of, you know, well, it's me and one other woman, and somehow we're at odds. And we don't have to be that way, as it turns out. We can be, you know, good job, and you do belong here, and you absolutely will learn this, and you're not, and so forth and so on. That costs nothing. It costs nothing, and it's good for you. So model good by doing good, one, and recognizing those learned behaviors. And the way we do this, and again, I love that I get to go last, because it's like we planned this. I mean, we did not plan this part. Something each one of you have said is about communication, is about talking to other people, about finding out other salaries, about talking to others about their experiences and so forth. That was the thing I wanted to say up here today, is hang on, I wrote it down. How do we model leadership and power in effect? Talk to people. If I were talking to me from 15 years ago, I would have no idea what do I do with that? Talk to people. Introvert here, believe it or not. Do I have to talk to people? How do I do that? I remember this very specifically. When I got into consulting, I sat Wes Brown down, and among other people, and I said, okay, how do you get clients? And he said, networking. And I said, that doesn't help me. I don't know what that means. Like, in an actual practical aspect, I don't know what that means. And some of you think I'm ridiculous, and some of you are nodding, okay? You're all my people, but you nodders, yeah, you're with me on this. What that means, it turns out, is going and talking to people on purpose and being, I'm being dead serious, and being interested in what they have to say and who they are. And when that finally clicked for me, I was like, oh, okay, so just another human being and we're gonna have a conversation. The biggest thing, I know, you're so confused, I'm sorry, we'll talk later. It's not a slam, he's my dear husband. But one of the most valuable things I have done, and you'll stop me eventually when I go too long, right? Yes. Okay. Is to talk to people. We've all been stuck at home to some degree or another for the last couple of years. We've all been missing out on this. My gosh, we have. Blythe said it at the beginning of her session. She was like, I'm so glad to be back. And we'd all applauded. We're like, yes, thank you.
Extrovert in the room. It's been a hard couple of years for us.
I'm glad to be back, right? Introvert doesn't mean you don't like people. It just means you gotta go have a rest after talking. What on earth was I going to say? We've missed out. But one of the best things that I've done this year is regularly reach out to maybe a double handful of people on and off. You know, Blythe and I have had calls every few weeks this year. I've called a couple other of you and said, that's not me. You know, my entire life, since I got out of school, I don't call people, I don't talk to people. But setting up those calls and having face-to-face, it inspires you in the literal, like, muse sense of the word. It teaches you things. It reminds you that, oh, I'm not just this one, you know, being in a capsule in a house alone. There's a Buddhist, a word I've seen in Buddhist texts that says interbeing, which, again, that's another hour-long conversation, but that idea of, no, like, literally we're actually all connected. Anyway, that's one of the big things, and I'll stop talking for a second, and I'll take it up again in a second.
Oh, beautiful, Jen. Thank you. One of the things that I'm very conscious of is where I spend my money and what kinds of content I consume. I've started really paying attention to this. I started watching more movies from female directors intentionally. And I have a pretty good sized budget these days, and so we're trying to book more women speakers for webinars, hire more blog writers, and just have a little bit more representation. If you've got a lot of SQL servers and you want them secured and managed, maybe you should talk to Jen. And if you're looking for a consultant, maybe you should talk to Shabnam. I mean, Anna and I work for publicly traded companies. You can come work with us too, but be mindful of who you're hiring and who you're doing business with, because you have options. There are MSPs in this community that actively mentor women and hire women in leadership positions, and there are some that it's not a priority. And so where the content that you consume makes a big difference for how many people are going to sit in this room next year. It really does. Yeah.
I was just going to add on to that, like, as you become a leader and you have more power, whether you're a woman or a man or identifies some other way, take advantage of that. Like, you can bring more women into your team. My team is 60% women, and we work at a tech company in program management. Yeah. And so, bring it forward. We're paying it forward. We want everyone to kind of reap these benefits that as we, I don't know where I'm going with that. But I think we can do a lot for other people.
So that kind of ties into the question we have online, which is, what are some ways a straight, white, cisgender man like me can help boost the signal of women in tech and help foster their success and fulfillment in their careers?
I'm just going to repeat something real quick. Is number one, guys, recognize it's not a zero-sum game. Blythe encouraging people to hire women does not mean you're not going to get a job. It's a big field, guys. This is why we all make the big bucks, or most of us, and if you don't, come talk to Blythe. It's not a zero-sum game. We're not in that kind of competition. So that's thing one, but y'all have more that it's going to be better than that, I'm sure.
You can take up space, girl. You can just say what you need to say. It's all good.
I'm making room for y'all.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I have something to say. So if you're a man and you're in a meeting with other women, or just one woman, because that's usually the case in IT, if you see other people interrupt her and go past her, you can help her voice be heard. You can just say, okay, but yes. So you can say, wait a minute, I didn't quite hear what she had to say. Let's hear her thoughts. Or if you hear, this often happens, again, unintentionally, a woman says something, idea doesn't go anywhere. 2 minutes later, man says the exact same thing, and everybody claps, and then the idea gets accepted, okay? So it's painful, it happens, but you can always say, well, so-and-so was on the right track when she said it. So acknowledge whoever it was first. And a lot of times it happens to be a woman.
Who here put up a hand if you manage and or hire data pros or DBAs? All right. Put a hand up if you are a woman and you would maybe think about moving jobs and or will be looking for a job in the next 6 months. Look around, guys.
Atta girl.
Look around, okay? So you better put your hand down. Everybody except Angela. I like to think that I just played a little matchmaker. I mean, we've got some business leaders in this room. Like, legit. And so if you're looking for a job, or if you're looking for people, this is a great place. Please go and introduce yourself after this. Don't just run out the door, okay? This is a safe space to talk to strangers. Yeah, I'll stop there.
I'm going to answer a bit more of that question and also build on something that just happened. Part of my big rant that I got excited and ran right past was part of it was, in addition to talking to people, mentor, be mentored. There's a lot to say about that again, but just having, and I liked how you put it too, Anna, where, if you don't feel like, well, I can't be a mentor, yeah, but you could be a guide. You've got individual experiences, and this is for men and for women. Mentor other people, get mentored by other people. I'm a ridiculous number of years DBA. I have to go back and count up again, and I'm still out there. I ask people questions, and I go and get coaching on this, and I go and I teach other people as much as I can. This is what we do. Oh, and building on what you just did. Blythe is right. I'm doing that thing where I'm like, oh, you guys, I'm not taking too much. That is a way to support your fellow woman, is to remind her of the things that we all need to know. Hey, I see that you're kind of nervous right now. It's fine because you're doing great. It's good. It's free.
Yeah.
It's free to tell someone they're doing okay.
You're doing great. You're the best.
You're doing great.
Everybody should buy Minuware.
I'll send you that check later, Blythe.
Thanks.
So we're going to wrap up with a final question real quick, and then we'll do some Q&A. If anybody has some questions, we can pass the microphone around, or you can come up and we'll hand it to you. What call to action would you like to have our audience take away from them today? What? Call to action.
Come back to me, okay?
Okay.
I don't know.
I can go.
Go ahead, Anna.
I think a good call to action is if you are not mentoring a woman today, like look around your team, look around this room, find someone you can mentor. Even if you're new to whatever it is that you're doing and you feel imposter syndrome, like I guarantee you can co-mentor together or whatever, but help women out.
For the women in the room, I would say assume you are underpaid. It's painful, but assume you're underpaid. And like Blight said, picture your boss's boss, a couple of levels up, and that's where you want to be. Plan big, small steps, and keep at it. You will get there.
Write that down. Assume you're underpaid. I'm not kidding. Write that down. Mine would be my final point that I also ran past, which is the other most valuable thing I have done this year is to maintain. I've got two friends that up until recently we were in a Skype chat group together, and we would just check in periodically about kids, work, my day. Did you take your anxiety meds? Whatever, right? That is so valuable, y'all. If you don't have one, try to form a little community. If it's you and one person, if it's you and 5 people, just a little something. Online's easiest for me, just to ping in, hey, how's everyone doing today? Oh my gosh, that form of connection, that form of reassurance, that form of comparing notes. Yeah, and if you don't have one, then find me on Twitter and we'll make one. Midnight DBA on Twitter, Jennifer McCown on LinkedIn. This is not me selling stuff. This is, oh my gosh, we need the community aspect to keep going till next summit and beyond.
I would totally agree with that. I would have made it through the COVID and all of the restrictions if I didn't have people like Tracy and Heidi and friends that I talked with every Friday. I haven't been there recently, but I know they're there. And it does. Having those connections is huge. So, do we have any questions? Anybody want to come up? Oh, well, maybe we have another one online?
Hey,
Oh.
can I have a, hey, okay, I have a question.
Oh, what's your question?
Okay, so my call to action,
Oh, yes.
yeah.
You have an answer. You
I
have a question.
answer. I don't actually have a call to action. Can I just add to what Jen said? So, like, most of you are Americans, but in Canada, which is where I'm from, I'm not sorry. Yeah. We have a parliamentary system of government. This is going somewhere, I promise.
History lesson.
All right. And in the parliament, the prime minister, which is kind of like our president, he has a cabinet of ministers, and they're all elected officials, and they head up the ministries of the government. But it's well known in a parliamentary system that the prime minister also has something called a kitchen cabinet. And the kitchen cabinet, they are the folks that the prime minister trusts the most. Our prime minister has his mother in his kitchen cabinet, and he also has the Aga Khan in his kitchen cabinet, and he's just got this like incredible group of people that advise him informally. It's meant to be like, it's a cabinet of folks that you trust, that you would call, and they would come over and stand in your kitchen and help you make better decisions, and people who don't have a stake, who aren't like climbing over each other to try to bend your ear. And my kitchen cabinet has been really important to me over the years. I have a friend who's a realtor, runs a real estate team. I have a girlfriend who's in insurance, and she's the oldest of 7 and can always figure out why people are being crazy to me as an only child. I'm like, why is he acting like this, right? And so you've got to find your kitchen cabinet, and you've got to identify them, right? Because and just let them know that they're close confidence for you. And that's been really important to me as I've been making career decisions. So.
Great.
Okay, questions now, sorry.
Questions now.
No, you're not sorry.
Not sorry.
You gotta come get it. I gotta come get it. You gotta work for it, sweetheart. We don't have somebody to bring you the mic, sorry. You could be there.
What do you do?
She's hanging out.
Okay, so this is an open question for whoever wants to answer this.
I'm afraid.
And this is going to sound hostile, but for those of you in the room that know me, you know it's not. This is just how I think. So you said, one of you said that one way that we can help foster women in the workplace is that if we're in a meeting and we notice that one of them gets, interrupted, that so on. How do you reconcile being a strong woman in the workplace, and this is the possibly hostile part,
You're doing fine.
and needing a man to stick up for you?
No, I get that. Yep. I can translate. No, I think it's kind of a reasonable question, and somebody else is probably going to say this better than me, just because I can tell I'm going to flounder a little bit. It's not necessarily a matter of I need a man to stick up for me. It's when we have these things working against us, it's better to have someone step in and help, right? If the 4 of us are walking uphill in the snow both ways against the wind, and someone walks along and gives us snowshoes, it's not condescending, it's recognizing, oh, you're doing something I'm not. And it doesn't have to be a dude either. It can be anyone. Yeah, please.
I would also say that if we stand up for ourselves at that moment, you're going to get labeled. Oh my God, she was such a bitch. Did you hear what she said? Or her attitude, or soften it down. And so you can't stand up for yourself, or you'll lose your opportunities, or you'll get that label, or something. There will be some sort of repercussion where it's easier just to shut up, let them take the credit, know that you were the one that really came up with that idea, and just keep working. Do what you got to do.
And I would say the goal is more important sometimes. You have to swallow your pride if you're trying to achieve something. The mission and the goal is more important than your individual,
Feelings.
yes, at work. And also, a lot of times at work, if it's a super critical meeting and I know there's going to be a lot of objections, a lot of times I pair up with other women and I have them have my back, and sometimes I have their back. So it's not just the men who can reaffirm something that women said and help.
Because understand, me being who I am, I think I might have a touch of Asperger's in some areas,
I'm afraid to ask. Did you have something? Oh, I said, oh, yes.
Come answer, yes, join us for a
Yep.
moment. I didn't really plan on
No, it's quite all right.
So I have an answer for this, and it's going to be, you don't just do it for women, right? I have sat and the question was, how do I stand up for a woman and not undermine her basically by doing that, right? So my answer to you is, you don't just do it for women. And here's the thing, I've seen a lot of junior people come in that it happens to them all the time. We talk about millennials, we talk about Gen Z, and they come in and they start to say things, and here's, somebody that's been there 10, 20, 30 years, and they talk right over them. And I see it happen to our junior people, men and women, and they get cut off. They're not being able to input their things, just like women of all ages, just like people of color, minorities, all of that is happening, that you say it when it's happening to anyone. And then you're not undermining women by that. You're helping everyone.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That was brilliant. Who does this belong to? Good.
Thank you so much. Any other questions? Mike Wall.
I think the word maybe you're looking for is, I think, sponsor.
Sponsor is the word we're looking for.
I think so. I'm telling you what to do. But I think everyone needs someone. Teammates are one thing, but that would be considered an equal. But maybe it's someone who's outside your argument. It's going to be, they have your back. They're the ones who can maybe help open a few doors, or they're just that one who says, hey, you're right.
Right. Thanks. Question. Where? Oh. Oops. But then they can't hear you on the recording.
We can repeat the question. Yes.
I'll repeat the question if you don't want to come up, but just come up.
So I know we're all in North America right now, so we're very progressive here, but we're all from all around the world, and we work with people all around the world. I just wanted some advice on how to deal with the culture biases in cultures that there are still so many cultures that look down on women, and it is really hard to talk to those people when they're in a different country and that's their norm. How do you, advice on that would be wonderful.
That is a good question. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
I can try. So, I have 2 points. The first is that if you're doing a lot of cross-cultural communications, I work globally, I have a global team these days, and the thing that helps me the most is learning how to tell a really good story. And if you were in my session, I talked about this a lot, but if there's one thing that's universal, it's a really great narrative. It's understanding how to talk through a point where there is a problem, or there's somebody who wants something, or there's a want, there is a roadblock that's getting in the way of that person or that thing getting what they want, and then there's a sequence of steps that needs to follow, and then you either win or lose. Now, the reason that's important is because you kind of like cue things up, and they have to wait until the end to figure out how the story's going to end, and you're much less likely to get interrupted cross-culturally. And so if I frame, when I'm on calls, especially with our engineering team out of Bangalore or some of our channel folks out of Singapore, I always start with, this is what we want to happen. From what you're telling me, this is what's getting in the way, and let me tell you how we're going to fix that. And I've got 3 points for it, and then this is going to be the outcome. And the human brain, cross-culturally, is wired for that kind of storytelling narrative, and I get interrupted a heck of a lot less. So that's the first thing. And then I have one other thing I want to say. There is a difference between, like, if you're fighting for a point, right? You're fighting for something in a meeting. You have a point you're trying to get across. There is a difference between irritation and agitation. And it's important to recognize the difference. I think that when we're irritating, we're constantly kind of like pushing our agenda against something, right? And it's like poking, and you can get railroaded, especially if there's someone with a stronger personality. But if you're agitating a point, meaning that you're really considering where the other person is coming from, and you're pulling your viewpoints into what they're saying by asking really insightful questions, you can get more mic time, and you can impact the results of that meeting in a much more profound way. Now, I've found success cross-culturally with this a lot, like asking really insightful questions and trying to nudge the conversation in the way that I want it to go. Just that, and that's anecdotal. It's personal.
So personally for me, I found that I actually had to, put on my mean Leslie voice and say, dude, stop interrupting me. Like every time I go to answer a question, you interrupt me and you start answering it before I've even finished what I'm going to ask. You don't even know what it is I'm asking yet. And you've already gone, oh, no, Leslie, I got it taken care of. No, you don't. And so I did. After a while, I was like, look, you just please stop interrupting me. And was just very direct with him and just told him, just stop doing that.
Let her speak. Let her speak. She's got the mic.
Half a minute, sweetheart.
I don't know if this is the correct answer, but I travel the world a lot with men doing technical things and having technical discussions, and I think I've been really fortunate in that the men that I've traveled with are aware of this, right? They see it happening, and I've had men who clearly are I'm not their boss. They'll say, if they notice that they're talking to them, they say, you talk to Anna. She's my boss. She's in charge of this. She runs this. And they have advocated for me and kind of helped me sit at that table where they see me. So if you're a man and you are traveling with a woman, or you're in another culture where you see this happening, like you have power here to like help it be better. And again, like probably not the politically correct thing to say, but
No, that actually ties exactly into, I was going to say, buddy up. Forewarned is forearmed. I've heard you talk about this a great deal in terms of like you're about to do something in your database environment that people are going to really object to, like yanking all the devs' permissions. If you know something is coming up, go to the bosses first. If you know that you're likely to be dealing with somebody who is kind of sexist, then go to them first and say, hey, we know, everyone knows this is going to be an issue, so let's talk a little bit about how we're going to deal with this. Buddy up.
Any other questions?
It's not really a question as much as
Oh no, God.
y'all took that question in a completely different direction than I took it.
Yeah.
Because she was talking multiculturally, and I thought she was asking, how do you deal with someone in a culture that like literally devalues women and doesn't like to work with women, and that's the way I took the
That's
question.
the way I took it, and that's the way we.
Yeah.
That's the way
Because
I.
it was
Yeah.
more, because it was y'all answered more on the lines of interrupting, and I was like, it's not really-
That's a cultural thing. I mean,
It's one of the cultural things
yeah,
we
I
can
mean,
cover.
yeah.
Yeah, you can't change the culture, so you can't individually change another country's or group's culture, right? So my advice would be, like they said, buddy up with other people, and in the consulting
Not to be
business, we always
offensive,
say,
but my friend Megan, she calls it a spokes penis.
Oh my God.
yes, in the.
We love you, Redgate. Thanks for being so cool.
So if you're in the consulting business, it's a little bit different. If you're working with a team, you're not by yourself. So in those cases, you always let whoever has the best relationship with the client close the deal or get the job done. So if you're with a group of people and you're working with a group of people that will take a man's word better than you, you have to think about it. Is it something you want to, work yourself up and go through the stress of trying to change someone in Target, or is it just let someone else talk to them? Sometimes
And again,
a new voice helps.
Yes, it's about achieving that goal, regardless of
it's
what it
about the
takes,
goal.
because
Yes.
that's what we're all trying to do. Thanks for coming. Anything else? Oh, got another question? Yep.
Can I just say that one thing I appreciate, especially about women, is that we're more vocal and we're not afraid to share things. So I appreciate Leslie, is that your name? I appreciate when she said that, because I was like, I appreciate when people are open and they say what's on their mind sometimes, because I could be thinking the same thing. And I appreciate all of you women. I'm a big fan of Jen, so I'm starstruck right now.
Woo! Me too.
And I appreciate when you guys blog and share all of this stuff. And I hope that I can, like all of these things that you guys are sharing with us, I hope that you are blogging about them or talking to people about them, or like putting it out there so that I can read it, because I do. I follow like everything out there. And so anyway, that's just a thought. Thank you.
What do you, thanks. Hey, Anna, what do you think? Can we get spokes penis on our blog, on our like corporate blogs? What do you think the odds are? The content review for that one?
Yeah, probably not.
No.
Well, we want to thank you all so much for coming and joining us, and I hope you've enjoyed the discussion and meeting these great women.
And just real quick, we want to continue this discussion. Some of us may not be able to stay or may, but if you're on Twitter or LinkedIn, use PassWit, that's WIT, network, and ask us questions and continue the discussion.
Yeah. Thanks again to Redgate.
Thank you, Redgate. Thank you all. Thanks to all of you.
Thank you, everyone.